Might I say that you guys look like absolute snacks today? Actually, more like four-course meals. And Leroy's thinking the same thing. Also, look what I just discovered. Oh, damn. That ain't a 4 head. Not even a 5 head. That's a 10 head. Anyway, back to the prior subject of snacks and meals. That's kind of the premise of today's cursed movie. Except not the good kind of snacks or meals. And you know it's bad when Leroy is disturbed by a movie because he's cursed as hell. He's like straight from hell. And he was still irked by it. This movie is low-key revolting, but in a fascinating way, okay? You shall see. You guys shall see. And yes, I just poked you in the eye. What you gonna do about it? So without further ado, let's begin this hellscape of a movie. The main characters of Honeydew are Sam and Riley, who are a couple, and the movie opens with them traveling over to New England. Sam is an aspiring actor, and his girlfriend Riley, she's a botanist, which is why they're traveling to New England in the first place, because Riley wants to travel there to investigate an outbreak of an ergot-type fungus called Sortico, which is apparently fictional to the movie. Anyway, this ergot-type fungus, Sortico, has been destroying local farms in that New England area they headed to, and Riley's trying to get her doctorate in botany, so she's doing this as her research project, studying and investigating the resurgence of Sortico in the New England area. And I guess Sam was just kind of dragged along, because he has no interest in it. After a seemingly extensive drive, Sam and Riley make camp in a remote field. It actually looks kind of nice there, and they get their tent out and start a campfire. Except later into the night, a truck pulls up, and a guy gets out who's apparently the farmer who owns the property, and he's like, yeah, you guys can't be on here, this is private property, my private property, and I want you to leave. And he clarifies that his name is Euless. So that kind of sucks. But Sam and Riley pack up their camp and hopefully put out the fire. But, you know, just like in every horror movie, they find out their car battery has died, so they won't be driving nowhere no time soon. So they trek alongside the farm road until they come across an old farmhouse, where an older woman who's slightly eccentric and a little odd off the bat opens the door for them, and they tell her their predicament and about their car, and that some guy kicked them off his field. And the older woman is named Karen. And she's kind of in the middle of cooking a meal, but she invites them in, like, come in. And she tells them, like, AA will take forever to get out here. Let me just call up Pete. My old friend Pete, who's good at cars, and he'll jump your car for you. And she says, unlike AA, Pete will be here in, like, 30 minutes, in no time. So Riley's a little hesitant about it, because the whole situation's kind of a little creepy. Mostly because Karen comes off as a little creepy. Like, she's nice enough, but there's a little something like, in the way she stares with that creepy absent smile. So she calls up Pete, who's obviously kind of hard of hearing because she has to yell at him a couple times. And she even tells him, yeah, Pete's really old. You know, so this whole situation's really looking up. So they're gonna have to wait at Karen's house for another 30 minutes for Pete to show up to jump their car. So in the meantime, since Karen is already cooking a meal, she invites him to stay for dinner. And again, Riley's kind of weirded out by it, a little like, no thanks. But Sam is down. He's like, yeah, I'm starving. That's the thing between the couple. Riley is more strict and uptight and kind of anal retentive, and Sam is more chill and laid back and kind of easygoing with things. So they both agree to stay for dinner, except Riley has to go out of the way and tell Karen, like, we're both on a very strict diet, so you're gonna have to cater to our means a little bit. And even though Sam is on the same strict diet with her, he seems a lot less willing and like he secretly hates it. I mean, because Riley even says on their diet, they don't eat any red meat, no dairy, no sugar, and no salt. What's the point of living at that point? That's terrible. All the best foods contain all of those things. When the three of them walk into the kitchen, there's someone else there sitting at the table, and apparently this is her son, Goonie, and he's just sitting at the table, bandages all over his face, honed into the TV that's playing ancient cartoons, and is eating and sucking on lemons. And he doesn't acknowledge their existence in the least, just stares straight into the TV. And she explains to them that Goonie was kicked in the head by a bowl, so that is why he's kind of out of it and semi-catatonic and just honed in on TV and mute. So while Karen is kind of adjusting or adding to the meal to kind of cater for Sam and Riley's dietary needs or restrictions, Sam goes to the bathroom, and then Riley, who is, you know, botanist at mind and one-track mind about the Sortico, she asked Karen, who lives in the midst of the Sortico havoc, she asked Karen about the Sortico infestation, and Karen doesn't say much, but you can tell that she does not like the subject, because from what she does respond, you can tell it had one hell of a toll on her and her family. Because they were farmers before all this infestation broke out, and it devastated all their crops and killed their animals. So it's taken one hell of a toll on the family and their income and their source of food. And this fictionalized Sortico is a fungus that grows on wheat stalks and infects them and poisons them. And consuming those contaminated wheat stalks, it causes an array of effects, especially prolonged consumption. And two of the main lovely effects are gangrene and insanity. So keep that in mind. So when the meal's ready, the four of them sit down for a pretty awkward, uncomfortable, kind of tense dinner. Although Sam looks like he's not even feeling a drop of the tension. He's just chilling. Chilling and feasting. And Karen made this loaf of bread that he really likes and is really digging into. Keep that in mind. He eats a lot of that bread. And the reason Sam's probably eating so much of the bread is because otherwise he just has vegetables to eat because of his stupid diet. The stupid diet that he seems like he does not want to be on. Goonie's there, but of course he's, you know, out of it and in his typical days, and Karen goes over to feed him, or tries to feed him, but when she does so, he starts kind of thrashing and seizing up until she like yells his name and snaps him out of it. And then Sam and Riley are there like, what the hell have we gotten ourselves into here? Anywho, after the tremendously not awkward dinner has concluded, Pete is still a no-show and is being more than 30 minutes. So Karen tells them, oh, you know, he's so old, whatever, he must have fallen asleep and forgotten. We'll probably have to wait till tomorrow. So really, without another word, she just goes down to the basement and starts settling them in there. Like, oh, you can stay here for tonight. Here you go. This is typically Goonie's room, but he can sleep in my room with me tonight. And this time it's understandable when Riley's like, maybe not. But again, Sam is completely chill about it. And he's like, oh, thanks. And he even lies down on the bed straight away while Karen's still sitting on it. And Karen and Sam both kind of just watch the TV that's on down there. I mean, it's kind of a handy setup down in the basement. Like, you got your own room. There's a TV. Although it's just playing ancient movies or whatever the hell that is. Ugh. And it's got its own bathroom down there. So while Sam's getting ready for bed in the bathroom and Riley's in the bedroom, she snuck down one of the cupcakes that Karen offered. But of course, she had to say, no, Karen, we don't eat sugar. But she snuck one down to the room, and since Sam is in the bathroom, she sneaks a little bite, and it's like, it's probably heaven, especially if you haven't had sugar in a while. Apparently Karen's a great cook. But when Sam comes back out, there's some tension between him and Riley. I think he's just grown sick of her, and he's probably mad about the diet thing. Or maybe he's just cranky from always having to eat, like, vegetables and stuff, like, ugh. I try to eat fairly healthy, right? I don't love vegetables. If they were my sole source of meal or sustenance, I think I would go crazy. I especially despise broccoli, but guess who likes broccoli? Of course he does. He probably likes asparagus too. So there's tension between Sam and Riley, and you know, Riley's in the bed trying to talk to him. Sam is ignoring her, and Sam just goes straight back upstairs because before Karen settled them into the basement, she's like, you know, if you get hungry during the night, by all means help yourself. Go back and eat those leftovers all you want, especially the bread. She didn't say that last part, but she was thinking it. I bet. I guarantee. So Sam goes back upstairs, and the kitchen is all dark, and presumably Goonie and Karen have gone upstairs to bed. Sam opens the fridge, and it's packed full of goodies. Like, there's a whole pie in there, and a tray of cupcakes. The same tray of cupcakes that Riley pinched one from. Without Sam knowing, of course. And most tempting of all, there's the meat that Karen was cooking with the dinner that Sam obviously could not have because he can't have red meat. So since Riley's still in the basement, Sam can eat what the hell he wants, and he does. He makes himself a big plate and even adds meat to it, which is probably the first meat he's eaten in forever. He has those cupcakes out, he brings the pie out, which, I know she offered that they could eat whatever they wanted, but it's still a little rude to just wipe out someone's entire fridge. Well, first off, they don't know you when you're a guest in their house. This is the first night you've ever met them, but go wild, Sam. Go hog wild, I guess. Sam starts eating, you know, the bread, the meat, and he's adding salt to it. Crazy. He's got the cupcakes and pie there that obviously have sugar. He's just going full-blown rebel right now, understandably. He's probably in taste bud heaven. So while Sam's feasting away in the dark still, Goonie appears in the doorway and it freaks him out. But Goonie, you know, obviously he can't say anything. He kind of grunting and mouth breathing a little bit, and he shuffles his way over to the table and sits down across from Sam. And Sam, as he's eating away, kind of begins venting to Goonie about, like, the strictness of the diet he's been on for the last while of his life. And after Sam has finished his rant and his venting, he continues eating, and then Goonie's kind of grunting and grumbling, and then he slams his fist on the table. Sam's kind of like, oh, what? What's wrong? And it seems that Goonie's frustrated by the labor of trying to speak, at the attempt of trying to speak, which only comes out as grumbles and grunts and barely that. But then as he's trying to speak again, he starts seizing in front of Sam, and Sam's like, because Sam has no idea what to do. But then the seizure kind of comes to an end. Sam goes back to eating. And Sam's unaware of this, but blood starts dripping from Goonie's eye. Then it cuts to Sam passed out at the table, now alone, and he's completely zonked out. You know, that's what any good meal should do, right? Right? Is it just the deliciousness and fullness of the meal? I don't know. And Riley's still in the basement, about to go to bed, when she hears all this crashing and banging from further out in the basement. Because the basement's kind of huge, and they're just in a room in the basement. So beyond the door, she hears all this crashing and banging. It's kind of getting closer. And she thinks it's Sam, and she's telling him off, like stop scaring me, dissonance, stop, otherwise we're over, or something like that. But it can't be Sam, because Sam is still upstairs, zonked out at the table, and having the mighty, strangest, weirdest concoction of dreams. But then he wakes up, and then he realizes he's alone, and the TV's off, and he's feeling a bit groggy and kind of out of it. So Sam heads back down to the basement, except when he gets there, Riley's not in the room. So he assumes that she's in the bathroom because it does kind of sound like the shower's on. Except after a while, when he calls her name a couple times and she doesn't answer, he starts looking around for her and he realizes that she's not even down in the basement. So he goes back upstairs to look around for Riley there. So he looks around the kitchen and the first floor. Then he goes upstairs to where Karen and Goonie's bedroom presumably is. It's completely dark and quiet upstairs. So he knocks on a door, which he assumes to be Karen's. There's no answer, so he goes in. But no one's in the room. But there's this little freezer box on the bed. But right before he's able to open it and see what's inside of it, a car starts outside, which catches his attention, and he goes over to see what the commotion is. It's now raining outside, and it's nighttime, so it's pitch black. And when Sam heads out into that rain and darkness, he sees that Goonie is sitting in a vehicle that's turned on, the headlights are on, and Goonie's just sitting in the passenger seat completely out of it. And the doors are locked, and Sam's trying to get his attention, like, what's going on, or let me in, Goonie. No response from Goonie. Stare straight ahead. So Sam wanders around the outside area looking for Riley still. He searches around the dark property until he comes across this giant barn which has some lights on inside. But before he goes in there, he has his phone on him, so he calls the police. His phone connects to the police, and he tells them that his girlfriend's gone missing, and even the operator's kind of just not feeling it. Because the operator asks Sam, like, where he is, and Sam's like, well, I have no idea. It's a white house, and the operator's like, yeah, we're gonna need a little more than that, bud. But that's when the phone cuts out. So as Sam gets a little closer to the giant barn, he hears a little bit of music playing, a faint, distant sound of music. Also, Sound of Music, that movie was terrible. I hate that movie. I have PTSD from that movie. Me and my entire elementary school were forced into the gymnasium to watch that 10-hour movie one time, and it was the worst 10 hours of my life. Anywho, tangent over. Sam heads into the barn, following the music, and besides a few little lamps, the barn is pretty dark. But he manages to find like a little radio that's playing the song. But what Sam doesn't notice is that in the dark, Karen is sitting there waiting with that creepy little smile she got on her face. Ugh. And even creepier is that she has a syringe in her hand. So as Sam leans down to investigate the little radio, she pounces out of the dark and then stabs him in the back with the syringe. And then it cuts to black. So I assume Sam got knocked out. And then it cuts to Riley waking up with an oxygen mask on, or breathing mask. And she's duct taped to a wooden post behind her back on a pretty high platform. And on the opposite side of that same wooden post is Sam, who's also being duct taped, and who also has the same kind of breathing apparatus on. And this wooden platform thingamajig they're sitting on is kind of high, so I don't know how old people got them up there, but anyway. And right next to them, kind of below them, is this picnic table, and there sits Goonie, who's just staring at this little TV device, but it's just a blank fuzzy screen. And then an old man enters the room, and guess who it is? It's Euless, the guy who kicked him off his property earlier. So both Sam and Riley are awake and hella groggy, but they watch this man come in the room and make himself a plate at the picnic table that's set up there, and he just kind of sits down there and starts eating. And also Sam kind of has his pants pulled down because he has a giant bandage kind of on his butt area that's bleeding. And then Karen enters the room and comes over to the picnic table as well and takes a calm old swig or chug of a glass of water, as if this isn't the situation that it is. And through the breathing mask, Riley is trying to mumble and call Karen's name, but she's hella drugged by something. Whatever is in the tank feeding them air is not great. And that's when Karen turns her attention up to them, after that little makeshift spur-of-the-moment picnic they just had. And that's when Karen kind of starts explaining things, because the Sortico infestation has obviously driven her and Euless and probably all the surrounding neighbors a little crazy. And not just crazy from desperation from their crops failing and their animals dying and their livelihoods crashing, but it's like actually affecting their brain. But I don't think Karen realizes how crazy and delusional she's gotten. Because Karen says that since the Sortigo devastated their food supply, they've had to adapt their way of eating and what they eat. She says that her and Euless became cannibals after the crop failure and all the cattle died to compensate for that other loss of their food supply. Also revealing that they adopt participants who are obviously very unwilling to feed on bit by bit. And Karen reveals that Goonie was actually a hunter who, unfortunately, wandered onto their property, who they somewhat recently captured and lobotomized to keep him sedated and compliant. And then little by little, they've just been cutting off pieces of him and eating them. Apparently they started at the butt cheeks, and they worked their way up to the actual cheeks, which is why he has a bandage on. And coming from a semi-normal human being who has not eaten human flesh, I suppose that the cheek meat, the butt cheek, and the face cheek meat is the most tender, which is why they go for it first. I don't know. Or maybe it was just most tender when it came to Goonie. I don't know. You also may have noticed a little crate that's at the end of the picnic table that's kind of just been staring at us in the face the whole time. And guess what's inside that crate? Somehow this situation just gets more horrific by the second. Karen opens said crate to reveal her daughter, Delilah, who is just a living torso of a girl. And Riley and Sam are watching down in absolute horror. And this is the girl who was there before Goonie, who they started eating from first, obviously, since she's missing majority of her body. And Karen even says that Delilah is a true marvel of self-sacrifice. even though Delilah has also been lobotomized and obviously has no say. And if she did, she would not let them eat from her body. What? It's that sort of co-brain, man. And off to the side, Karen and Euless have a little fire pit going, and there's some meat grilling on top of that little fire pit. And I guess it's finished cooking because Euless takes it off the little grill and he takes it over to where Delilah is. Get ready for this. Apparently this meat is the chunk they cut from Sam's butt. That's been cooking over the fire this whole time. What is this movie? Oh my gosh. Ugh. And they take this chunk of Sam's cooked butt meat over to Delilah to feed her. Not a second before praying over it though. Very important. As if that's gonna change what it is. Or change the circumstance. But yeah, they pray over the butt meat. And then they feed it to Delilah, who can barely chew it because she's being lobotomized. So now we have a good idea as to what the meat they served at dinner was from. Even though, you know, at dinner, Sam and Riley didn't eat it at first, but Sam went back up for leftovers, and that's when he kind of pigged out on it. So I wonder who he was eating. Probably Delilah. And after only a couple bites, Delilah is laid back in the crates, and they close the lid back on her again, on their lovely little daughter that they love so much. And then to make this situation somehow even worse, which should not be possible at this point, Karen says up to Riley and Sam, who are still tied up and looking down in this horror show, "We've really been hoping for grandbabies, but we haven't gotten any yet." So I don't know what fate lies in store for Riley and Sam based on that comment, and based on the whole situation. And based on what Karen tells them, Delilah is far from the first. She said they've had many other kind of volunteers to serve as their food supply. And Karen says that Euless used to be a vet, so he's been the one who's been doing all the lobotomies that have been performed on their willing participants that have become their meals. And right as he's explaining this, he pulls out a stepladder and climbs up to where Sam is tied up with this horrific looking tool in his hand that looks very lobotomy tool shaped. So Sam is still pretty drugged, and whatever he's got in the mask is still continuously drugging him. So he's trying to move away from Euless, but he's also drugged and tied up and kind of screwed. So Euless manages to position that metal rod right up next to Sam's eye, and he's got this hammer on the other side of it, all coiled back and ready to go. And right as he's about to hammer the rod into Sam's eye and subsequently his brain, that's when the police show up outside, presumably in response to Sam's cut-off call. Like, maybe they tracked down the area the call came from. And, you know, Riley and Sam do try to scream a little bit, but their masks muffle it. Even then, they don't try very hard. Sure, Euless just threatened Sam with Riley's life, but you think you'd still try a little bit, but whatever. So Karen grabs a cattle gun and then leaves the barn to go deal with the police, or just hopefully just talk with them. And she probably just heads out to talk down their concern and like, "Oh, nothing's wrong here, officers. There's nothing at all. Don't look in the barn. Don't look at that hellscape in the barn." But then Euless goes out to join her. And so now Sam and Riley, you know, still tied up and on that platform, they're now alone with Goonie, who is probably not their best bet at getting help, but in a process that takes forever, Sam eventually convinces Goonie to climb up the stepladder and take his mask off and take Riley's off, and then use a little pocket knife to cut the duct tape free from him and Riley's hands. And like I said, Goonie does take forever, but he's being lobotomized. Give him a chance, give him a break. But he actually manages to do so power to him. And even though they both have their masks off and the duct tape off and they're freed, whatever was in the masks has been drugging them, not to mention the food they ate, specifically the bread they were fed last night, which was made with the Sortigo-infested wheat, has affected them as well and has been drugging them this whole entire time. So even when they get down from the platform, Sam can barely walk and Riley can't at all. So Goonie has to carry her. And right as they get down, Karen returns from her talk with the police, and Sam, who's kind of slumped over and can't really move himself, he yells at Goonie to take Riley and run and get out of there. And Goonie doesn't really run, he more so like shuffles and ambles, but he follows his order. He follows his ask and he tries to get Riley out of there. And I guess Karen is too old and decrepit to chase after Goonie, even though he's not going very fast. But the pocket knife that Goonie used to release Sam and Riley from their restraints is on the ground, and Sam and Karen take notice of it at the exact same time and both try to lunge for it, but they're both enfeebled for different reasons, so it's kind of a draw. It seems that way anyway, because after showing Goonie escaping through the field carrying Riley, it cuts back to the barn, except Sam is on the ground and has been stabbed. So somehow Karen got the upper hand in that situation. So since Sam is incapacitated, Karen and I assume Euless try to chase after Goonie and find him, and they go into the forest after him, and they actually are pretty close behind him, when unfortunately, Goonie, who is still heroically and valiantly carrying Riley and trying to get her away, he steps in a bear trap, and he obviously falls to the ground and drops Riley, and Riley's trying to just crawl herself away because that's all she can do. And then Karen catches up to them and is kind of comforting Goonie, who is in obviously horrific pain because his leg's in a bear trap. And Karen still has that cattle gun she took earlier, and right as she puts it up to Goonie's head, it cuts to black. And then the movie jumps to what we can assume is many, many months in the future, and you'll see why we make that assumption in the next few scenes. And it shows Karen hard at work in the kitchen, grilling up some more of that lovely mystery meat, even though it's not a mystery as to what meat it is anymore. And then she prepares a plate of it along with vegetables and a cupcake, whatever else, and takes it over to Riley, who is sitting at the table with bandages all over her face and that glazed look in her eye, and who is also very heavily pregnant. So Riley there has obviously been lobotomized as well, and presumably has also had meat taken out her cheek because she has that bandage on, and she's just sitting at the table in Goonie's place, chewing on lemons like Goonie used to do. Because I think apparently lemons, and I think there's salt on the plate, lemons and salt help with nerve damage, I believe. And then Karen readies two more plates, and then hobbles her way down into the basement with those 2 plates, where we see a lobotomized Sam propped up in the bed with that same absent glaze, staring ahead. And he's obviously been fattened up, like she's been overfeeding them and plumping them up for her future meals. And although Sam's been lobotomized and is out of it, Karen's trying to feed him and is being all cutesy about it. Like, here, buddy, here, take your greens. As if this is a completely normal scenario. So Sam's kind of resistant to being fed and kind of just moves his head away as much as he can, and as much as he can mentally manage. So Karen turns her feeding attention over to someone else who's at the foot of the bed. Delilah, who's propped up against the bedposts. And then she starts feeding her some meat, which is probably, I don't know, at this point, I don't know who it is she's feeding to her. It could be Delilah's own meat. It could be Sam's, Riley's, no idea. And of course, Delilah can barely chew it. And Sam can only kind of grunt and huff to communicate because, you know, he can't really speak. You know, he tries to get out a couple words. It's horrible. And when the camera pans out, we see that Sam is missing both his legs below the knee. That's probably what Delilah's being fed right now. So Sam and Riley didn't get away after all, and they got the lobotomy treatment. Now they are a live-in smorgasbord to Karen and Euless. And to themselves, I guess, because Karen just feeds them their own meat. And guys, would you believe it if I said it gets worse right now? Would you believe it if I said this scene gets worse? Because oh man, it does. Oh man, it does. Because while Riley's back upstairs, staring ahead and chewing on a lemon with blood kind of pooling down from her eye where the lobotomy stick went in. But back downstairs, back in the basement with Delilah and Sam and, you know, Karen kind of forces Delilah onto Sam and is forcing them to procreate, copulate. What? What the heck? I think my eyes are about to bleed right now. I mean, she did say she wanted some grandbabies, right? And, you know, Riley's upstairs, and she's pregnant, so... Are they just breeding a bunch more food? Is that what this is? Is that what this situation is? I don't know. Are they breeding their cattle and livestock to later eat? This movie is so lovely. It's so lighthearted. It's such a pick-me-up. It's not horrific at all, but, you know, even as horrific as the movie actually was, its ambiance and tone was on point. It was, like, perfectly creepy, and overall, despite the subject matter, the movie was actually pretty well done. And the sound design was really cool, and there was always these little, like, strums of instruments playing at just the right moments to, you know, up the suspense and up the tension. The way it was shot kind of had a lot of artsy vibes, which I think worked for it. And, you know, as nasty and graphic as the material of this movie is, and the subject matter, you can't say it's not original, right? It's a pretty fresh idea, right? If we can even call it that. But overall, and don't judge me, I kind of liked it. I mean, I thought it was a well-done horror movie. I mean, it was horrific, but it's a horror movie. It's supposed to be. And they pulled that horror aspect off pretty damn well. A little too well. Yeah, so that was fun. That was a fun watch. So, you know, give it a watch if you want a lighthearted, fun, lovely, cheery pick-me-up as well. So let our takeaway be that if your car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, just stay in your car, okay? Just stay in your car. Don't go to any creepy old farmhouses. That never works out right. That never works out well.